things that caught my eye was the Rebuild Collective. So, what do you do there? What is it all about?
Yes, the Rebuild Collective is a propaganda newspaper that individuals from the New African Independence Movement, citizens of the Republic of New Africa, put together in order to spread out information and so people can learn about what the Republic of New Africa is, what the New African Independence Movement is. So it's a collective of individuals, organizers, youth, revolutionary nationalists, and individuals of that sort. So it's something that we wanted to do again because we have lost it over throughout time and throughout our movement, which started back in like the 1960s, the late 1960s. So we're just trying to bring back that element to organizing and to the grassroots movements and things of that nature. So these individuals out of Detroit decided to start the Rebuild Collective so we could start to put a lot of the information out about the New African Independence Movement. And as far as me, I've wrote I've did one issue which was dedicated to one of our comrades that lost his life this year, Haki Shakur, elder of the movement. So I wrote like an article and things of that nature for the Rebuild Collective.
My condolences. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And going off of that, do you normally write for these sort of collectives, or was that like when you just wanted to, like, you felt compelled to just kind of speak out that time?
Most of the time, I usually do my stuff like through like videos, audios, and things of that nature. I never really got deep into like the writing type of thing. I can do it, but for that particular reason, yes, I felt that I had to been compelled to like write something dedicated to my comrade that passed away because he was the founder of the organization that I'm under in the New African Independence Movement. So I'm the national spokesperson anyway. So that's why I decided to do that for the Rebuild Collective.
I understand. I'm kind of the opposite. I like to write more than to speak out loud to those sort of things. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's
Because
yeah.
yeah, certain individuals, can use their skills, when it's needed towards certain things. I like to write too, so you know that's a good thing.
No, that's good. So then, next, leading into like W. W. Brown and what we're going to get to. So, what do you think about the dismantlement of the Confederate statues here in Richmond, and kind of following up to that? Like, do you believe that we should continue to put up statues? Like, should we still be preserving some of these narratives in Richmond, or is it kind of like a waste of time to even like have some of these statues up? What do you think?
Yeah, like I'm kind of like pulled in two different directions when it comes to like the statues and things of that nature, the monuments and things like that. But far as pertaining to the Confederate statues, I mean those type of things I do support in taking down because those type of things only represents oppression. It only represents inequality, racism, prejudices, and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, yes, it's our duty and job as African people in America to tear down symbolisms that are white supremacist and represent colonial domination over our people. So yes, when they came down, I fully supported that, because like one of our great ancestors, he predicted that day would come, John Mitchell Jr. He said that one day in Richmond, Virginia, that the Confederate statues and things of that nature would come down. So it's not even like a surprise because at the end of the day, it doesn't represent nothing empowering or upliftment or anything for our people. So yeah, I supported the them taking it down and things of that nature. And far as monuments and statues and things of that nature, if they're a waste of time and things like that, it all depends on how you look at it. Because at the end of the day, um, when it comes to African people and our existence here in America and things of that nature, we don't have those things to a certain degree. So when it comes to our people, yes, I will fully support putting up certain monuments, certain statues that represent upliftment, empowerment, um, that shows our story. You know what I'm saying? In a positive light. And even on the side of what our ancestors went through as far as the pain, the enslavement, and things of that nature, because we're in the time and place to control the narrative of our story, not their history, our story. So yes, when it comes to our people, African people, yes, I will support raising monuments and statues and things of that nature, as long as it's for individuals who deserve to be put up on statues, or if it's telling the story of our triumphs, our defeats, where we trying to go, what are these monuments and statues trying to represent as far as where we want to go, specifically in Richmond, Virginia, and things of that nature. So yeah, I support that. And also we got to understand that it's even deeper than that, because when we're dealing with reparations and when we're dealing with what happened to our people, specifically in Richmond, Virginia, but throughout the South, period, with chattel slavery, all the way up until now, with the injustices and things of that nature, statues, monuments, and things of that nature that commemorate like victims of the slave trade, freedom fighters, heroes, all these type of things are in coordinates under reparations. You see what I'm saying? Under international law, um, in accordance with the United Nations and things of that nature. So yes, we should be trying to support as many statues being raised and commemoration monuments and things of that nature, because these things represent repair, healing of people that's been damaged, victimized, genocided, which is still going on today. We're still being genocided. So all these things are in accordance with human rights and things of that nature, and telling our narrative, like I said, telling our narrative, and it's also signifying that the United States of America is taking accountability for their wrongs that they did to our people, things of that nature, and it's an apology. So yeah, I support statues for African people, new African people in Richmond, Virginia.
I'm glad that you mentioned that power of like empowering and like lifting up, because like some people, like the reason that the statues came up, like I had a class on this, not
Yes.
the specific statues, but on the Confederate side, saying like, oh well, Robert E. Lee, he was just representing Virginia, it was his home, yada yada yada, but it was like the message behind it. It's like when we put these people on like a pedestal, saying like, oh yeah, and then we put the label Confederate soldier
Mm-hmm.
under that, it's already kind of tagging like a little bit of like a negative impact and saying like, well, these he was still like, even though they lost,
Mm-hmm.
like they're still gonna like put his statue up. And like it's interesting to think about that, like you said, like you have to find a statue or like a narrative that's gonna lift up people. So some
Mm-hmm.
people like Maggie O. Walker, she just got, that's the next question, she just got her own statue recently. And as I watched your video when I first found you, like you are, you know, wanting to get like petitioning for W.W. Brown to get his own statue. So, and that kind of answers the question already, like why do you think he should get his own statue? Because he's already like lifting up and empowering what he did in the past, the way he did for Richmond and Jackson Ward.
Yes.
But like, are there any other like natives of Richmond, African American figures or important figures in general who come to mind that you
Mm-hmm.
think should get their own statue or memorial in addition to W.W. Brown?
Yeah. It's a few individuals that I feel that should get statues, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. But yes, they deserve to have statues. Some of the statues that I would like to see is individuals that are of African American women. Like I think that needs to be more focused on, because most of the time when we live in this type of society, it's sexism involved. So it's our story and even their history kind of leans towards more of a masculine or patriarchal type of symbolisms of males who have accomplished these things. So something that I would like to see different in Richmond, Virginia, as far as statues and commemorations and memorials, is to uplift the black women of our story. People like Rosa Dixon Bowers, she was like the first black teacher of Richmond, Virginia, and she's a very historical figure and educator in Richmond, Virginia, that most of our people never even heard of her. So it's like people like her and Virginia Randolph. I would say those two specifically black women, I would love to see statues of them, even though Virginia Randolph is on one of the little statues or monuments downtown somewhere. But she doesn't have like one of her own spaces that can tell her story. So I would love to see somebody like Virginia Randolph, Rosa Dixon Bowers, and somebody like that get statues and things like that. But yeah, also other individuals like John Mitchell Jr., for what he did with the Richmond Planet, his stance on anti-lynching, self-defense, being entrepreneur, self-determination of creating our own economic system and things of that nature. So people like him and Richard F. Tansel from Church Hill, who was an entrepreneur, economic genius, who opened his own banks and things of that nature too. Giles B. Jackson, the first black attorney to practice law in Richmond, Virginia. You know, he's somebody that's a historical figure out of Jackson Ward that accomplished a lot of things also. And he also worked with William Washington Browning to create what they created with the Ground Fountain United Order of True Reformers. Last but not least, I think this individual should get a statue of, I would say, of all of them, because his story is very prevalent to Richmond, Virginia, and it's coming out of the chattel slavery and slavery periods. Gabriel Prosser. I feel like he really deserves a statue in Shockoe Bottom. And I also made a petition for him to get one as well a couple of years ago. It did its thing, and I'm still trying to push these petitions and things of that nature. But Gabriel Prosser is like his story, period. If people want to put it in the context of American history, African American history of heroes and sheroes and things, he represents the epitome of that history in our story in American history, period. Because this is an individual who stood up for, equality. He's like one of the first freedom fighters in Richmond, Virginia, in the history of our story, period, of black people in America to stand up and try to fight back against the system of slavery and oppression and inequality and things of that nature. And even the governor, I think it was Tim Kaine at that time, he pardoned Gabriel Prosser. You know what I'm saying? Because they knew what he stood up for and what he was trying to do. And when he tried to spark that slave rebellion in 1800 in Richmond, Virginia, they knew he was correct. You see what I'm saying? It might have took some years later, hundreds of years later, to get it right and to correct the narrative. But Gabriel Prosser is a symbol of everything that we're struggling for. Whether you're white, black, brown, Asian American, he's the epitome of that. You know what I mean? So I think Gabriel Prosser, of all people, deserves a statue. And I think it would make the narrative complete in Richmond, Virginia, if he got one, because it's telling our story as a people, period, in America from that period up until now. Because if it wasn't for Gabriel Prosser, we would have never had Nat Turner, all these other individuals that came later on from Virginia that tried to correct this thing and get people free and things of that nature.
No, that's good. I'll have to look more into all the people you listed because once again, like I'm not from Richmond.
Okay.
Even back in I'm originally from Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Sterling, Northern Virginia area. And so when I came here to go to school for VCU, and I'm learning about all these people like W.D. Brown, Maggie Walker, every other person you just listed now, I'm like, well, this is news to me.
Mm-hmm.
How come I've never been taught this like in school, period?
Right.
About like the economic values that they did
Mm-hmm.
for Jackson Ward. Like I've never heard of, I heard of Black Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of Black Broadway, but it's never been like more than just like the basic level stuff because I'll get to this later on, but I want to mention it now. Like in history, like we tend to focus on like the bad, or we tend to focus on the victors, and we tend to like kind of brush aside like all the importance, like lifting these people up. Like you said, like it's not just representing like us; it's like everybody else. Like it's encompassing, and it's not like relevant then; it's relevant still now to this day.
Yes.
So I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because you never really talk about like the good of history. We never really talk about like the times you've been lifted up.
Yes.
By these people, especially from Richmond, which was the capital of the South, which is
Mm-hmm.
the capital now of Virginia. And even though I'm not from like Richmond, like I still, to my surprise, have never heard this. Like history, we get told the same people.
Yeah.
Like Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I'm like, is there anybody else I can
Yes.
talk about?
Exactly.
Anybody else to kind of give me more like a wider scope? And so I'm glad that I'm doing this interview with you and that you're telling me all these people so I can look into it so that I'm not just limited with okay, of the people I know from Richmond, there's W.J. Brown and Maggie Walker, and that's all I got.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad that you mentioned. I'm gonna look into those people now.
Yes. It's doing yourself, justice of self-educating you about the people that you don't know about. This is why I got into this type of work, period, as far as being a historian, a new African historian, is to tell our story from Richmond and Virginia, period, because our education has been so racist and so oppressed. You feel me? So that's why we don't know about it. You know what I mean? Even some of the stuff that's even coming out now, trust me, don't feel alone. I'm still in that shadow, because it's still a lot of stuff that I'm still finding that is eye-opening. And it's wow, Like I ain't know this took place in our own backyard. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, no, don't even feel bad or ashamed about it or nothing like that, because all this stuff is starting to be, starting to be exposed and coming out, and that's based on the technology. Because like now we got a walking around computer, which is the phone. So now we can search all over the place and do these type of things. So that's why, I felt like this was my ancestral duty, is to put this information out, because I know it's generations that's coming behind me that don't have no idea about this history period, don't know who these people are, and even some of our elders don't even know this. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I always try to tell people, like, especially from Virginia, in Richmond, in this area, Northern Virginia, so don't be ashamed if you don't know about these people or you don't know nothing about this information, because all this stuff is new. Trust me, it's new.
Yeah, I agree. So, are you a native from Richmond and
Yeah,
from here?
yes, born and raised from the south side of Richmond in Virginia. Yep, south side of
All
Richmond,
right.
Virginia.
So, had you previously heard of the True Reformers and W.W. Brown? Like, did you learn it from school, or like you said, you had to like kind of like come along to it, and like then you just started to like start growing in it a little bit?
Yeah, self-education. Cause you already know people like William Washington Browning and the True Reformers organizations and things of that nature. This wasn't part of none of our educational system growing up from when I was going to school as well. When I went to school, no, none of these people were talked about. Not even Maggie L. Walker. And which is crazy because she has a school named after her in Richmond, Virginia. So, that's even crazy. You know what I'm saying? That she's not even part of the education curriculums in Richmond, Virginia or Virginia period either. So on my journey, as I said, as a journey as a person that's coming into, learning how to be a historian, a researcher, and things of that nature, so I can tell our story from Richmond, Virginia. It's crazy. I heard of the True Reformers when I was younger, but like I said, it wasn't. We don't have the technology that we have today and things of that nature. So it was kind of hard to even get that type of information back then. So as the years went by, I just started like compiling bits and pieces of researching the True Reformers and their history in here in America. So the more I researched the True Reformers, the more I started to find, and that's when William Washington Brownie stuck out. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, why wasn't we never taught about this individual, and why is he not being taught now? You know what I'm saying? With these accomplishments and the things that he was doing back then in Richmond, Virginia, I was like, whoa. So it just took me deeper and deeper down, the rabbit hole, and I'm just looking and researching, and the True Reformer history just started sticking out to me. Cause I'm looking at them, I'm looking at the period in time that this was going on. Because you got to understand, this is something that happened from individuals who were formerly enslaved. You see what I'm saying? So I found it magnificent. Like, whoa, they come straight out of being captured, you know, prisoners, enslavement, and things of these nature. And these individuals didn't take no time or no hesitation and just sprung into like being self-determined, creating our own, doing for our people and things of that nature. Because in that time period, that was unheard of. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like I said, our education systems are so colonized and controlled by people who don't see us in their best interest, is that they kept this from us, especially in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow. So then I'm like, these are people that were doing these type of things, and you got people like Marcus Garvey who's known for doing that. You see what I'm saying? Like, even though some of his history has been suppressed too, but Marcus Garvey was that person that we knew of that is like, wow, he did that. Like, he organized all those people. He did all these things for our people. But we got an individual in our own city, own story, same history, who did this before Marcus Garvey. So I'm looking at it like, wow. So I'm looking at, as I research and things of that nature, I'm trying to see like, what was the True Reformers? What were they doing for our people? How did they contribute to our community? How did they fight back against inequality? How did they uplift us like this? How did they become this economic power, this self-reliant power, this self-determined power? And as I pulled up all this information, I started blogging it. I started putting it on my website, New African 77 and WordPress.com, so I can put it out to the world. Not even just people in Richmond, Virginia, Black people in Richmond, Virginia. I did it so all our people across the nation could come across it and start to research it themselves. Like, who is this individual? Who is this former enslaved individual that did all this? We never heard of him. We heard of people like Garvey, and Elijah Muhammad and people like that created these organizations. So like just researching Will Washington Browning, the true reformers, made me find other individuals that's in our history and things of nature that did similar things. So yeah, the true reformers, that's a history that I'm still trying to put out there to the people.
No, I understand. Our group, we came with the title, it was Black Capital, and then like colon the true reformers, because if we do make it a series, he would be like the first episode,
Right.
as we like venture into like Black Capital. And as we were like starting to like do our research, and as we were like gathering all these links, and we were finding all these people and all these books and everything like that, we all, or at least myself and one other of my partners as well,
Okay.
we hadn't heard much about them as well. And so this was like interesting to like find out like how come we never heard about them before.
Right.
And the more we kept like digging, the more we kept uncovering, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And the one thing that I told my professor when we were like pitching our idea to him, we were like, oh yeah, he was formerly enslaved. And he was like, what? It was like a moment of like, wait, really? He's like, yeah, he escaped slavery, joined the Union as a soldier, and then went on to like form all these organizations. He's like, you have to like start out like saying that, or not start out saying it, you just have to mention it, because it's like, even despite that, history still got made. He's still affecting us to this day. We still got buildings like the True Reformers building. I had a previous interview with Tim Addix. He's in D.C. in the True Reformers building.
Yeah.
These people on tours there. I have to visit as well, but it's like their building was in D.C. Their building was on Black Broadway. Like, that's incredible.
Yes.
It's still affecting, like, he influenced Maggie Walker to do her St. Luke's Penny Station.
Yes.
From that point, the people who came out of the True Reformers went to do their own thing.
Yes.
And so they kind of like started it, and then like all these things are still happening to this day, and it's incredible. I'm like, we have people similar to him, like Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
People who come from different backgrounds, like Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
W.B. Du Bois. Like these people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I've never heard about him. And it's interesting, like, and leads into the next question. It's like, as we start to like run into these things, and we're realizing that the well is drying up a little bit on information we can find on him, because not too much was recorded on him, such as Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, all these other like predominant names. Like, so why do you think that is? Like, why? Like, our search is like starting to come a little bit dry. Like, we're kind of running into the same things with him. Do you think it's because like there's not too much information found? Do you think there wasn't like enough collection, or do you think like he just kind of got not swept under the rug, but just maybe like covered up a little bit by people like Frederick Douglass, who were a little bit bigger? Not to like put aside any of his accomplishments.
Yes.
They were just like a little bit bigger.
Yes.
A little bit more well known than him.
I would say it's a component of all those elements you just said. It's a little bit of each, at the end of the day, because a lot of those records and things of that nature pertaining to true reformers and William Washington Browning, you got to understand, just like even our enslaved ancestors, a lot of that history was lost. Because we got to take it back. You got to remember, like during the Civil War and things of that nature, when the Confederate States were defeated and when Richmond was the capital of the South, like you stated, when Richmond fell, you got to remember the Confederates, before they left, they burnt down a lot of the buildings and a lot of the places where they kept all these records of ancestors who were enslaved, individuals like William Washington Brown, all these things. A lot of that stuff was set on fire. You know what I'm saying? Even after that, like after that period of time when William Washington Brown and them came on the scene, a lot of this stuff was being destroyed by our oppressors. Like, I'm gonna just put it out there. White people who didn't want our story to be known were hiding these records, destroying these records, and trying to destroy their existence, trying to destroy their history. So, we got to understand all this is a part of a strategy of our oppressors to keep us oppressed. It's to destroy the history of people that triumphed, accomplished things, and even the bad history, like even things pertaining to our enslavement. They destroyed a lot of records. They destroyed a lot of that stuff over the period of time. So that's why when it comes to William Washington Browning's story, you don't see as much. Like when you try to research and try to go deeper into his story, you don't see as much. But that's the main reason why I stood up for this ancestor, because I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all starting to let this man's accomplishments, legacy, and things of that nature disappear. You letting it, be suppressed and disappear. Like he has and this is the most crazy thing about it. His first bank, where he started the bank at, was out of his own house. You see what I'm saying? His house still exists. It's still downtown, but it has no attention at all. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I'm disappointed. I'm like, this is one of the greatest historical places, even in American history. Like I said, it ain't just pertaining to Black history. This is if you want to put it in the context of American history. Like, why is this place not, you know, in that light? You know what I'm saying? Even though they just got to Maggie L. Walker with the commemoration of the statue, I'm saying that this is an individual who influenced Maggie L. Walker. He did it first. He did it before everybody. He founded the first bank of Black people, period. You see what I'm saying? In history. Come on, this is unfathomed. Like, how is this individual not being talked about? And trust me, I took this to our elders, even elders here in Richmond, Virginia, who are African American historians and things of that nature, VCU, Virginia Union, Virginia, all these places. I don't went to them all. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, why when Washington Brownie is so suppressed? Why they don't like him? So that gave me the motivation to find out why was he being so, suppressed and hidden from our people, and his story not being told. And I found out the truth of it all. As I soon to, find out as I dig deeper into his history on why they don't like him.
No, it's true. Like, I read a few accounts where, like, he didn't necessarily get along with, like, I believe it was someone from the Reformer. It was the newspaper argument. So, like,
yes,
he didn't have the greatest relationship. Like, he was so brilliant, but, like, I read that he didn't have, like, the greatest relationships with some people who would be, like, the main influencers, who would, like, write down his name. And so, like, I understand that. And I had to laugh a little bit. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Because of these, like, relationships, he probably didn't, like, get as known. We have, like, the basic, encyclopedia.
Right.
We have a few informations from, like, some of the fraternal organizations before he's, like, started the bank and et cetera, like that. So it's it's a little funny to laugh at now because he didn't have the strongest relationship with some of these people who were going to be writing, like, about him.
Yeah, he didn't.
People like him, Frederick Douglass, but all those other people. He didn't have the strongest.
No, he didn't have that.
I thought that was... No, he didn't.
And then we had to look at the aspect of the most important aspect why he's not being put out there like that is coming from the oppressors, the white people as well, because they seen him as a person that he was a major threat. Like I said, this is somebody that preceded Marcus Garvey. You see what I'm saying? He did what Garvey did later. You see what I'm saying? This is a man that took a organization, the True Reformers. This is another reason. He took the True Reformers organization, which was a white organization at first. The reason why he was so motivated to transform it was the fact that he was turned down membership from the original founders, which were white European Americans. You see what I'm saying? So he found out a way to get in the True Reformers. And once he got in the True Reformers, because Black people started to take over the organization, they started to outnumber the European members. And once they started to outnumber the European members, that's how they took over it. You know what I'm saying? And they voted when Washington Brownie in as the Grand Master, the wizard, the leader of the organization. And this man created over 765 chapters of the True Reformers organization. I never even heard of Marcus Garvey having that many chapters of the UNIA. You know what I'm saying? 40,000 members. He had over 40,000 members stretching all through the South, all over Virginia, from Norfolk to, like what you said, in Washington, D.C. This man had land, farms, houses, hotels, youth businesses and things of that nature. So it's like, this is where they got him at. This is how they got him. It got him in the position to where they can hold his history and suppress his history. They try to use how the True Reformers fell as the complete narrative of their organization. So they bring up the case of the embezzlement, the fraud, and things of those nature. Because if you go look at every resource when it comes to the European history, the main vocal point that they hold is his embezzlement charges and the fraud thing that took place that ultimately took True Reformers down. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. But I know why they doing it. You see what I'm saying? Because they got to keep Warren Washington Brownie suppressed and looked at in the light of somebody. Yeah, he did something great, But they, you know, how white, white European historians do. They want to make him look like a criminal. You see what I'm saying? So, and the reason why they did that because they don't like his political ideology. His political ideology was the most dangerous. And what was that? He was like Malcolm X and the rest of these individuals. He was a black nationalist. You see what I'm saying? He wanted to do this for our people, not no other people. And throughout history, that's demonized. Like if black people stand up and be like, look here. No, we just want to do this for ourselves. We don't want European Americans in it. We don't want other other ethnic groups in it. This is something we want to do for our own. You see what I'm saying? So when you get individuals, you should know that when you get individuals who stand on that principle, that political ideology, they're going to try to destroy them. You know what I'm saying? And try to make them look bad because it's like, no, we can't let these type of people have that type of spotlight because it's going to educate the future generations and it's going to make the future generations want to follow in those steps. Like, we got to do for ourselves first. You see what I'm saying? So that's why if you look at that history back then, William Washington Browning is the first of those type individuals. This is where we get people like Garvey, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, all these great leaders. They come from William Washington Browning, period. Because he's the first person to really even take it to that level. If you go back and look. Now, there were other individuals who existed back then who did the same similar things. People like William, like Benjamin Pap Singleton, Edwin McCabe, all these type of individuals. Tunis G. Campbell. It's a lot of these people. You know what I'm saying? But William Washington Browning did it on a higher level than all these people. So that's why they're trying to keep his story suppressed from the people.
No, that's good. That's very relevant to what I was learning a few days ago in my one of my classes, and we're talking about like the civil religion of like America and how they'll hold on to these. Like the reason the statues only came down recently is because like more people are starting to be like, well, that's wrong.
Yes.
Like people are starting to recognize that that's like the wrong side of history, and we don't want to like preserve that.
Right.
And so when you get people who are wanting change, and then you have the people who like wanted to keep it in the past, the people who even like brought up the statue to begin with, you
right?
Know, like this narrative that's so embedded in America that it's like hard to like even like try to like uncover, try to like change and dig out. So like we get like incidents like I had to look this up before coming here, but like I found out again that George Floyd's statue in New York was defaced twice already now.
Right.
Twice.
Right. Yes.
And this is going to lead into the next question, but like as a preface, like people are getting upset that we're trying to change history.
Right.
Change history, just show things into light. Trying to show that like from like the very beginning, like all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, even beyond that, when it says all men are created equal, and then you start to, then you're like, okay, what about slavery? And they're like, well, they're not people.
Right.
You have to dehumanize those people in order for them to like to make it make sense.
Right.
They're like, okay, we can change the Declaration of Independence. It's like that's like our founding. That's like our scripture. That's
right.
like our religion, kind of.
Right.
We have to like preserve that. So we'll just dehumanize those people. They're not really people.
Right.
Objects. So then when you do that already, you're like, okay, done, nice and neat, final. And then people realizing down the line, they're like, well, that's not right.
Right.
We have to put up more people like Maggie O. Walker. We have to put more people like Martin Luther King Jr. We have to put more people like George Floyd.
Right.
In New York.
Right.
And
yep.
So when it gets defaced, you're like, okay, well, we're trying to change it. We're trying to show this new light of history. Someone who didn't have to die. Someone who didn't have to do this. And people are defacing it, and you see like that pushback. So like,
right.
do you think we'll ever be able to change the narrative? I know it's going to take some time.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a long time, but do you think we'll ever be able to change the narrative of like the statue in like in New York? Like,
right.
Do you think we'll ever be able to like change that narrative? Will we be able to accomplish it? It's going to take time, but will we ever be able to reach it?
Yes, we're definitely going to reach it because we're doing it right now. You know, this is something that I always try to tell our people. This is not a sprint. This struggle is not a sprint. You see what I'm saying? People looking for change overnight. People looking for to change the narrative overnight. No, that's not how the struggle goes. If you look at the history of a people that's been oppressed or dehumanized and enslaved and all these type of things, no, coming out of those type of conditions, this is generational. You gotta look at the struggle as generational. Like I always tell people, some of us may not see that, victory in the physical. You see what I'm saying? But it's still your duty to take up that struggle, take that, the baton and things of that nature and run part of this marathon. It's just like what Nipsey also said. It's a marathon, you know, and it's what we call in the new African independence movement. We call it a protracted struggle. A protracted struggle is long, it's drawn out, but victory will come. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at it in that type of way, so you don't get over, you know what I'm saying, anxious on trying to make it happen now. You see what I'm saying? Because you got to get the reality and the mentality and the mind state to focus like this might not happen tonight. It might not happen tomorrow morning. It might not happen tomorrow night. It might not happen 3 weeks from now. It might not happen for a month, year. You see what I'm saying? You have to have that embedded in your mind so you won't get burnt out in the struggle on your ancestral purpose. You see what I'm saying? You gotta embed that into your spirit so your spirit can keep the energy up to take on that baton of your destiny, of your purpose, of our people's struggle, of our people history, to change the narrative. Like you said, our duty is to change the narrative. We're not trying to change history. No, we're trying to put our story out there. That's the opposite of his history, but it's balanced. Everything got to be balanced. We're looking for balance, perfect harmony. You see what I'm saying? This is what equality is all about for all the people that's looking for equality in this society of America. You know, you gotta. It's the opposite. We gotta control the narrative of our story and teach the right side of history. You see what I'm saying? Whether, like I said, whether it's the parts of history that you might not want to identify with too much, like the enslavement, the capture, the work on the plantation thing, we still got to tell all angles of that story. You see what I'm saying? Period. To make our story complete for our generations that's coming behind us, that's going to keep coming behind us, and things of that nature. Now, the thing with the statues, real quick, with George Floyd being defaced and things of this nature, we got to understand that comes with the struggle of trying to control the narrative of our story and the history of America, period, in trying to make it correct, in correcting the history. You see what I'm saying? Some of these statues gonna get defaced. You see what I'm saying? Just like people were defacing the Confederate statues. You know what I'm saying? Which they had a right to do that because at the end of the day, we know what those statues represent. You see what I'm saying? But even when we're trying to paint the picture of the correct history, our story, the triumphs, the victories, and the people that represent, you know, self-determination and things of that nature, white supremacists exist. You see what I'm saying? Well, this is something we can't hide from. White supremacists exist. They're going to destroy statues like George Floyd. They're going to write on them. They're going to paint all of them. Do we give up? No. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, you might get disappointed for the moment when they deface people like George Floyd statues and things of that nature, but that's not a loss. You see what I'm saying? We can paint it back. We can correct it. We can, you know, and this comes down to something that I be talking to other individuals about as well. When it comes to these type of things, monuments, statues, commemorations, and things of that nature, all this goes under something that we have to practice as well. Self-defense. And self-defense ain't just picking up a gun and defending things of that nature. No, self-defense comes with self-determination. If we're trying to show our triumphs, our victories, and things of that nature, these ancestors, we got to defend it, right? You see what I'm saying? So we gotta we gotta organize something or put something together that can defend these monuments, defend these statues, and keep individuals from defacing them. You see what I'm saying? If we just keep letting it happen, like certain things in our story through our history, we letting it happen to our people, then that gives the white supremacists the power, just like the Confederate statues gave them the power to do these things to black and brown people and native indigenous peoples. You see what I'm saying? So that's why even our native indigenous brothers and sisters, they the prime example. They don't let people just deface their monuments or their symbols and things of that nature. You see what I'm saying? It's like we the people, you know, and I'm not talking down on black people. We're the only people that seem to let certain things like this happen, and we don't say something or do something about it. You see what I'm saying? So we gotta take a look into the native indigenous brothers and sisters textbook. Like, yo, they defend them. They take their monuments and things of that nature very serious, which you supposed to. That's your story. That's your history. That's you know, things like that. And we can even use the Jewish people as an example. You can't go deface no Jewish monuments. They gonna take that to the international level. That's going to the government level. You see what I'm saying? So it's just about us standing up as a people, as a nation of people, you know, a black nation of people and things of that nature, and just standing up and saying, no, stop it. Or this gonna be the repercussions if you keep, touching our stuff. You see what I'm saying? That's all. That's how you change the narrative and control the narrative of these statues.
No, that's good. That's good. That's real good word. I
Yes.
think that.
Yes.
But it's good that you brought that up because that's kind of what W.W. Brown wanted to do. Like when he started like these organizations, when he grew out of like the True Reformers and on to Richmond here as well, like he wanted to take the power away from them and give it back to us because the main focus that he wanted to do was like on alcohol. He's like, we can't let them control us because if they keep giving us alcohol, if we keep consuming alcohol, then obviously we're not going to be in our senses. We're going to keep giving our money to them.
Right.
To
Exactly.
us more alcohol, and it's going to be an endless cycle, and we're not going to get anywhere. He's like, no, this is about building up Black business,
Yes.
Black enterprise, Black-owned banks, things like this.
Industrialization.
Exactly. Like, that's exactly why he's like, we can't let them take the power anymore. This is our government. Like, this is the reason, like, and it's interesting when I looked into this, when I was researching this, I was like, all these many things came from him. And Jackson Ward itself was like, it was like a thriving place, and like you said before, like they like to focus on like the embezzlement and things like that.
Yes.
That organization lasted for like 20 years. Like you said, there were like 40,000 members, over 700 like chapters.
Yes.
That in itself is an accomplishment that I don't think many organizations can say they have, yet let alone a Black-owned one as well. So
exactly.
It's interesting that like going back to the very beginning, like we always like to like point out the negative part of history, the ugly part of history. We plaster in our textbooks and our history books and be like, this is what it is. This is what it means to suffer. And W.W. Brown and people like that are like, listen, we might have came from that, but we don't have to continue to live like that. We don't have to like to continue to give our money to them to give back to us.
Yes.
Alcohol and things like that. Like we can change the narrative, like you said. We don't have to necessarily like change history because we can't change the bad parts of history because that's part of us. That's how we grow. That's how we like continue to grow. And I guess that's what like one of the things that like got me interested in W.W. Brown was like he all these many things. People like him, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm talking too fast. Maggie O. Walker, like all this, regardless of their background, look at their accomplishments now.
Right.
They're still doing now. We're still talking about them in my podcasting class because the way they spoke, the way they got their point across was so prevalent. That can be used now today that I'm probably going to use for our podcast. Like the way that we're talking right now, like
yes,
you can use it as a platform to further this, to help us keep it going, so that what they did back then doesn't like die out. They were the greatest, Black-owned bank in 20 years. All their accomplishments, we got to keep that narrative going. Once again, that's what drew me to him, and
that alone, the crazy thing about it, that alone, this is the crazy thing about it all. That alone, this is an individual, and this is the main focal point that I always try to make to people. Just think about this. This man was the first man to start a Black-owned bank, period, and it's not talked about. It's not in notebooks. You barely can find it. People barely know it. You see what I'm saying? Our people barely. That to me, that is like one of the biggest injustice, period. It's like how this one person did all this and he's not talked about, period. Like even when I bring it up to some elders who are steep deep into history, they never heard of him. They was like, what? Who is that? Like he started the first bank? What? Why one of my elders told me, like, why am I just hearing about this? I'm like, when I looked at him, I'm like, see, that's the crazy thing about it. I'm like, it did me the same way. I was in WoW. I've been in WoW for years and I'm still in WoW. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe a person created something like that. You know what I'm saying? Despite, like I said, at the end, what happened at the end of it. This is a contradiction of America. So you got European Americans who can accomplish things, and those things might not have ended so well in their, history. They could have did things like embezzlement, fraud, or whatever, but these individuals are still highlighted, period. You still know them. You see what I'm saying? But when it come to William Washington Brownie, they tried to destroy him and hide him off of that basis. You see what I'm saying? But the contradiction of America is that a white man can make mistakes, but a Black man can't make mistakes. You see what I'm saying? Or, this is something that I raised as well. We don't know what happened that caused the embezzlement, that caused the fraud. He could have been set up. How we know? Because we know that European Americans were sabotaging things at that point in period of time. See, that's one of the things that I'm kind of saddened about as well, is that I can't find enough information about that part. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I know, hey, our oppressor might have destroyed that part. You see what I'm saying? So you won't know that they was involved in trying to frame him with embezzlement or fraud and anything, so they could control his history, control the narrative. He said, oh yeah, he might have created the first black bank, but this guy was a thief. He's in embezzlement. He's a fraud. That's what the American books was putting out there to our people. And I felt like, to be honest, I felt like that what strayed a lot of black people from him when they focused on that part more than anything, and then tried to focus more on his, like his black nationalist views, which people still get twisted to this day. And the white man tried to twist it and try to make it look like he was a black segregationist. You see what I'm saying? No, it's like what Malcolm X stated. No, see, y'all getting it twisted. You're not educated. It's a difference between, and we don't even really use this term either like that, but we use it just to, teach the lesson of what it was, what black nationalism is the fact that, no, a separatist and a segregationist is two different things. That's not the same thing. A segregationist is a person who segregates people by force. You see what I'm saying? A separationist is a person who does it by, he does it willingly on his own. He wants to separate from something that may be bad, you see what I'm saying? Or that's not uplifting or anything of that nature for his people or for him himself. I want to separate from that. That's not good for my people. That's not good for us. So I just want to separate, do it our own. You know what I'm saying? But throughout history, the European colonized the education to try to make it look like a separationist is the same as a segregationist. No, it's not. So throughout history, they try to paint William Washington Brownie as this bad separationist. He's a segregation. He's trying to cause conflict and separation between the races, even though y'all wanted us to be separate in the first place because you segregated us by force. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. These are the things we got to point out, the contradictions, and teach that to the people also so they can understand William Washington Brownie's story and people of that nature who accomplished these triumphs and things of that nature, that look at the obstacles, the things, the strategies, the chessboard on how they was playing against him and other individuals like him. So you would not like him or you might not want to learn about him. That's all it is right there.
Yeah, no, that's good. I have to agree 100%. Like, it's always when things like George Floyd, when we put up statues, when we start to like change the narrative, when we start to like bring things to light and be like, well, yeah, that happened, but also this happened too. That's when people start to be like, well, he was this.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of,
Yep.
like you said, twist the words, kind of like change it up. So
Still doing it to this day. They still doing the same strategy. Same strategy they did on the ancestors, they doing it right now to George Floyd.
like, and it's terrible. Yeah, interesting because you're like, oh, I see. I
Mm-hmm.
see now
Mm-hmm.
how it is. I see
Yep.
how it goes.
Yep.
But it's interesting. But oh, this is one of the last few questions. So like,
Okay.
what do you, from going from this, what do you want people to know about W.W. Brown that they may have not known before, or something that'll like kind of draw them back in? Like something that I think that my group and I want to accomplish from this podcast. We want more people to like, oh, that's interesting. We don't have more about him. Or when we tell them all the information we have, like one of the routes I'm thinking of going is we tell them all we have
Right.
on W.W. Brown. And they'll be like, well, this is all we have so far.
Right.
And we kind of want you guys to like continue it. Like, what else can you uncover?
Right.
Is there anybody else like kind of give us more ideas? Like, is there anybody else in history like W.W. Brown, or not even like him, just like
Right.
any African American who's done like anything besides like business as well, but like anything else that's kind of like brought it forward that you've never heard of before? Is there anything that you want people to know that you know
Right.
W.W. Brown that they might have not known before?
Yeah, I would say one of the most important things of them all is that the fact that William Washington Brownie was steeped into our ancestral, skills and things of that nature. We gotta understand that he also was a farmer. You see what I'm saying? This was an individual that was steeped deep into growing our own food that people don't know about. William Washington Brownie. He had over, like I said, he had over like 3 farms, and he had a personal farm that he brought. And I believe the number of the acres of land was something around 250 acres of land And it was a farm. He turned it into a farm. And when he turned it into a farm, he started these things like I said, he started a part of his organization, which was a division for the youth, and it was called the Youth Business Division. And through that youth business division, he was teaching them all types of skills and things of that nature, like real estate. We got to put Win Washington Brownie in the light of an individual who was one of the first black real estate um, people that was trying to teach our people about real estate, because he was heavy into that. He was buying land. He was doing all these type of things back then that wasn't really highlighted. You see what I'm saying? And these type of things still go like unknown in our communities as black people, is that we're agriculturalists. We are heavy into agriculture. That's why they brought our ancestors here for, was to take care of the land, build the land up, things of that nature. So I would say, like, one of the most important things that people should try to research more about is his involvement in land. You know what I'm saying? Because that's still something highly important to our people, because we're still struggling for black sacred spaces, black land, things of these nature that we can have of our own. And also, I'll throw this one thing in here also. You got to understand, Win Washington Brownie is one of the first people that really put an emphasis on mutual benefits, insurance, life insurance. See, when we look at the TV today, we see nothing but white companies, you see what I'm saying, pushing insurance, mutual benefits and all these type of things. No, this is a man who did it higher than Europeans. And that was one of the reasons why they tried to destroy him, was the fact, like, whoa, who is this black man that's so heavy into mutual benefits, life insurance, death benefits, and he took those benefits to take care of his people. It wasn't just to bury the people. He raised all this money through the mutual benefit and insurance businesses and things, real estate and things like that, was to give our people money so they can take care of themselves when their loved ones die. You see what I'm saying? So that helped a lot of black people get on their feet. This helped a lot of community leaders come into existence. People don't realize these type of things. He helped string out a lot of community leaders and people of that nature that came after him. And people got to look at it like this. These things were going on all through one of the most horrific periods of time for our people, Jim Crow. You see what I'm saying? So they had the black codes, the slave code laws and things of these nature. He was up against all these things, but he still was creating and thriving and showing and creating entrepreneurs, activists, organizers, and things of that nature. And I'll slide one more in there. One part of the history people might not know about Win Washington Brownie is that him, John Mitchell Jr., Maggie L. Walker, people got to understand, they were a part of one of the most historic boycotts in history, when they stood up and boycotted the rail car things in Richmond, Virginia. Like, they started this, and this spread it out throughout the South, because this was going on throughout the South and even in parts of the North, where black people were being discriminated from riding on the rail cars. You see what I'm saying? And when Washington Brownie and them, they organized this boycott, and it shut down Richmond economically, and it made and enforced the power structure of Richmond, Virginia, to do away with the racist practices of on the rail cars. You know what I'm saying? See, it's a lot of stuff about Win Washington Brownie that people don't know about, and they don't know that he was an activist as well. You see what I'm saying? Like, they were a part of one of the biggest boycotts in history. And the crazy thing about it, that's not even talked about. People don't even know about that until one day, I ain't gonna lie to you, until I don't know if I still got the video. I did a video on it, and then I did posts all across social media with my blog, showing people about the boycott. I'm like, if y'all really want to know the effectiveness of boycotting, you want to learn the history and the origins of some of the greatest boycott, I put them on to the William Washington Brownie and them boycott. And a lot of these people, like, even from elders to young, like, I've never heard of this. Like, wow. Like, they shut down Richmond, Virginia. It affected the white people's money, the economy, shut it down. And, like, I'm still trying to put that out there, you know what I'm saying, so people can learn about that as well. But those are a couple of highlighted things that I would love for, other people to go research and try to put that information out there, about when Washington Brown is some of those type of things, but the land thing, yes, like the land, real estate business and things like that. Yeah, man, do yourself the justice and go research that about when Washington Brown. Even though, like you said, you might not be able to find too much about it, but even a little bit you do find, put it out there. You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to start it's going to start something that's going to bring out the bigger picture of that history. You see what I'm saying? So, like, just go research that, you know what I'm saying, about William Washington Browning.
No, that's good. I'm recording this now so I can also remember to go back and look at these as well, because
Yes.